All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the She Builds Women in channel. We continue to spotlight amazing trailblazing women in technology who are leading change in the industry and bringing their experiences and sharing with this group of amazing women. I'm your host, Thais, and today I am honored to share this episode with my friend Candice Bohannon. So, Candice, do you want to say hello?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name's Candice Bohannon. I'm a specialist solutions architect based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You'll often catch me on AWS She Builds episodes here on our YouTube channel, as well as on Twitch here lately. So I think Thais is great, and I'm very excited to be part of this episode where we get to talk a lot with Jane about her past experiences and what she's doing now at Accenture. So thanks for having me.
Yes. No, thank you. And we have our guest, and I'm so honored to have our guest today, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us. And Jane, she's a managing director in technology market unit lead for Accenture Canada and a member of the executive leadership team. Has over 30 years of experience leading large scale, complex technology transformation across industries. And we're going to talk about that. But also, she's known for building teams, strong teams, delivering complex projects. She's a mentor to a lot of the women, and she has a background that is outstanding. She's an Olympic medalist for Canada. And when I read that, I was like, what? And she has a lot to share from her experience transforming the business and also her background as well. Jane, I feel honored to have you on this episode today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm really excited about our chat.
Yes, and I want to get started and dive right into you being someone with incredible experience on transformation projects. We are in a very key moment in transformation, right? We're all talking about how do we continue to transform different industries. So, what has been the most challenging in this area or transforming businesses, industries, and what has been most rewarding from your experience? Can you share a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had the privilege of being in a number of different industries over my career at Accenture. I have not spent my entire career in one spot because I get bored very easily. But so I think what I'll draw on is more in the resources sector where I have spent a majority part of my career. And, I think when we're dealing with um, goals that require transformation of an organization, you really have to think about not just the technology, which is important, but also, does an organization have a common goal of what they're trying to achieve through the transformation? And I've had a couple of examples over my career where um, having sort of a goal of creating a consolidated business where, a mine site might have been operating very autonomously, or different lines of business in a utility, whether it's transmission, distribution, or generation, have been operated very disparately, and trying to create a common vision from a business perspective about how those organizations could come together around a common goal. And so the complexity is around finding that like secret place in the middle, special place in the middle. Not secret, it can't be secret. It has to be common alignment, because parts of the business and parts of technology have to give something up to get to a greater spot for the enterprise. So, I think thinking through that on the sort of organizational change that's required, the people process change that's required, and the technology that's required, and all the data and the infrastructure and the architecture that has to be in place to enable that. is what creates the complexity, I guess. But when you create the common goal on the value is what helps keep everything together and operating as a single North Star across those parts of the business.
You mentioned something that I've been thinking and talking to partners and customers a lot about value, right? You just said common goals, value, and that's very complex when you're shifting from all of these different industries, right?
Yeah.
Um, how how do you have a mental model on approaching that from your experience? How do you get started with it? Because shifting is not it's not easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I am, very proud to work for Accenture, where focused on client value is first and foremost in all of our practitioners and leaders' minds. So everything we do around how we approach a client's business problem is around value to the client. And, so we have a lot of insight that's available to us that helps us shape our point of view on that. But, I think some of our clients can sometimes be quite challenged with quantifying that value. And business, and by value, I mean business value. And so being able to help quantify what the business value would be should a change or access to information to make better business decisions be implemented. And then there is a little element of a leap of faith from the client that what the process change or the information change or the organizational change that would require being in place to capture that value. But, and I think that's where our clients sometimes have some challenges is that they justify a technology project because they have to do it. They have to do it because the technology is either out of support or going to be out of support, or they really want to get off of on-prem and get into the cloud, but they may not have brought the business along on the why the business would want you to do this. And I think where we run into some challenges on these transformations is when IT is driving for all the right reasons on, why we need to get into the future but the business hasn't been brought on board enough about why they should want that. And so when you look at business value and quantifying business value and what executives would be accountable for saying, yes, I agree with that business value. That to me is what Accenture does really well. But it does require some leap of faith through data and through trust that we can do that together with our clients to achieve that.
I think this is super interesting. So sitting more on the technical side, but I'm a solutions architect, and so we have to bridge this, right? Um, I think that the way you're approaching this is fascinating. I'm also a math major to begin with, so I can measure anything. I have a book about it, and I can quantify just about anything. I love that. But I often say that I like to be on the technical side because the people stuff is hard. So,
Mm.
and a thing that you just said too, when IT drives the most, let's say, and you don't have that business value, I feel like it's really hard to have a successful project and product overall. So I think that is
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating. Also want to kind of double click back on the people side of things because I need to learn from you. You have a really great like leadership style. You're talking a lot about trust. I'm sure you have some amazing high performing teams under you. So how do you actually like build that culture? Like how do you handle that the hard squishy stuff of the people problem, especially when you're working with these
Mhm.
really complex technical projects?
Yeah. Um, it's first of all, I love the people side, but it's really hard. I agree.
It's hard.
So there's an element of the people side on our teams, which I think is what you're asking about, and I look at that in our own teams, but also our client teams, because operating together for the outcome is the real part of team. I try to encourage people to think about where their own, as leaders, where their own personal strengths are, um, and not to be blind about where maybe they're not as strong, and that it's okay to not be strong in all facets of either technically or leadership style. Like, I'm not always accused of being warm and fuzzy. And so I need someone on my team that has a real pulse on people. And, do we need to do more recognition? Do we need to have more events? Like, how are we recognizing contributions of people? That's not to say that I'm a big meanie, but I am very driven on, I'm achievement driven, goal driven, outcome driven. And I know that requires people. And sometimes I need somebody to go, Jane, let's reflect back, and here's how our people are feeling. So I think building a team around, I guess what I'm trying to say is building a team around you that has diverse leadership styles as well as technical skills are equally important. And when you are in that role, I think you have to be a really good listener. And you can't be afraid of the tough messages, giving tough messages, and you can't be afraid of receiving tough messages. And your team has to feel like they're in an environment where they can give you those tough messages and that you actually do something about it. So, I think that's how I think about building high performance teams, that you are in a safe place, that you feel you can share your point of view, share your observations, um, and that you recognize that you may not be strong in all areas, and it's okay to ask for help in those areas where you might not be as strong.
I think that totally makes sense. It's all about kind of the team. One person can't do everything on their own. So definitely a good thing that you're kind of like leaning on that team to help you
Mhm.
make it happen. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one thing that you said is on relying on the team to give you that perspective on how do they feel about something, versus the balance with the business, right? Or
Mhm.
balance of achieving more. Um, but you mentioned we have one leadership principle, which is one you just mentioned something that aligns with that, which is earning trust
Mhm.
and building that space for our team. So I lead a team of solutions architects here in Canada as well. And this is something that I do. I spend a lot of time thinking about how to build that space where people feel that I can trust my leader. I can be vulnerable without judgment. I can admit my areas of growth without being afraid of, being penalized. So,
Mhm.
what has worked from your experience and
Yeah.
into building that space for your teams?
Uh, I would say there's maybe a couple things. One, I would like to think I'm a very authentic leader. I I do what I say. Um, I don't just talk about it. And if I can't do something, I'm not afraid to have a tough conversation. If she says she's going to do it, I think she's going to do it, as opposed to, okay, I just spent an hour talking to her and I don't know if she's going to do anything about it. And so to me, there's a balancing act of not a balancing act of being authentic, because I think you always have to be authentic. Um, but there is being authentic doesn't mean always being nice to everybody. There is, but being kind to everybody about hearing either the challenge or what they need or help in any way, um, and being responsive, whether that's in listening and saying, I'm not sure I can change that, or responsive of, I'm going to go try to help you and here's what I'm going to go do. And I think behaviors build trust because it isn't just lip service.
Oh, yeah. walk the talk and behavior, lead by example. I love that message. Yeah, I don't know, Candace, what do you think of that?
That's what I look for in a leader, those sorts
Yeah.
of things. I don't mind if we need to have a hard conversation, but help me do my job better and let's make sure that we're doing the things to make our customers happy, the product delivered, whatever that thing might be. So I really appreciate authentic approaches like that. And I don't know. I like that you don't really, it sounds like you don't have to guess so much where you stand. So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's a
think
great thing.
clarity is really
Yeah.
important. It's important to our when we try to deliver work with our clients or when we deliver work, clarity that they're having with us that, we're meeting expectations we aren't. Clarity on what we expect our clients to contribute, sign up for. And I think clarity on our teams, like whether it's aspirations around performance and
Mhm.
promotions and being um, not cruel around feedback, but really constructive on here's an example of what I would want to see differently that will help me assess your readiness at the next level. And I think when we give very generic or we blame somebody else for feedback on why somebody, doesn't get promoted or doesn't get a raise or what have you, I think that's passing the buck. And I think good leaders don't pass the buck.
Agreed. So then if we kind of flip this around just a little bit, what do you look for in top talent? Like what are you looking for your if you interview or bringing people onto your team, what would you say is a specific skill or value or approach that you think really helps people to succeed in these like high pressure scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to tell in an interview whether somebody can keep their cool. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. So, there's certainly areas to probe. I mean, I think there's a foundation around technical skill, obviously, that has to be and business skill that has to be ferreted out. But the other things that I do look for are, is somebody asking me really curious questions? Like, have they really thought about career-wise even what might be different at Accenture? And so, how thoughtful are the questions that are being asked around that? So that would be curiosity. I also look for whether an individual constantly talks about themselves, or how unprompted others may have contributed to a certain success. I think if you prompt an individual around collaboration, they're always going to have an example of it. Um, and what I've learned over my career, well, my career as an athlete, but also as a professional, is that an IT professional is that um, if you're only focused on your own metric or your own goal, um, you're missing out on a broader um, picture and broader value to bring to our clients because we're organized around service groups, and each part of I'm now in our technology service group, but we have strategy and consulting in a service group. We have people that do operations, so run business processes for our clients. And if I'm only thinking about technology and what technology can bring, and I'm not thinking about maybe there's some industry differentiation that our strategy and consulting group can bring insight and talent around and thought process, or how combining technology with a business process operation, how combining those two things might drive bigger value for our client, then I'm not bringing the best of Accenture. And so, but if I just thought about my own technology metrics, I might not, be as consumed about how other service groups can can interlock with what technology can do. And I think about that way on it from a team perspective too. Like if um, certain parts of the program are done on time, but they're not on the, they're doing it at the expense of something else happening, chances are the critical path isn't going to get met, and our timelines will be delayed, our schedule will be delayed, cost overruns, and so understanding how each part, I call it a jigsaw puzzle, like how different pieces either of our organization or a program are required to move together so that big picture can be accomplished for the business outcome on time, on schedule, um, is super important. And you can only do that if you think about how other people contribute to what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, um, I want to dive into your background as an Olympic athlete. And we just got into the skills part. And I feel that you might have brought a lot of those lessons.
Mm.
And how did this chapter help shape who you are as a leader today?
Mm.
How do you encourage others, not only in the tech industry, but also new athletes, right, that are there pursuing those results? So can you tell us a little bit about that part of your story?
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of sports as a kid. Excuse me. Some of them were more individual sports, but a lot of them were team sports. I excelled in swimming, which was the sport that I was privileged to represent Canada at the Olympics. And when and I thought you might ask something about this, so I really reflected on a few things, even from a 12-year-old athlete to graduating high school, but and still being an athlete through university. But there were a couple other things that I reflected on that I I think are embedded in my leadership style, but also, just as a IT professional. And one is being coachable. So I think when you're a, really talented athlete, it can be at times easy to say, well, my coach is an idiot, or they don't really understand me, or what have you. And maybe sometimes that's true. But being able to listen to the feedback on how, I might be able to do my stroke differently, or my turns were terrible, and here's how we, can improve that. I think just being open to the feedback. So, and having, and I got yelled at over my athletic career, and so, and I know we grew up in a different time in terms of what's tolerated and what's not, but that also gave me, a pretty thick skin around how to deal with things that aren't going so well, things that may have created some passion in somebody I'm around. Um, and so I think that's important. And then two others would be just kind of learn to trust the process. Things don't happen overnight. Like at age 10, I hoped I would be at the Olympics. Well, I'm not going to be at the Olympics when I'm 11. So how trust some of the experts along the way on what are those milestones that show me I'm on track to get to that. And I think sometimes we get really impatient professionally that I'm not getting promoted, or I'm not getting rewarded, and I think because of my athletic career, I have trusted a process more, that there is a path. There's skills I need in various parts of that path. And that's enabled me to be professionally successful. And then I guess the last one is just um, the greater good versus the individual. And I think we've talked about that already. But I was a strong swimming. The great thing about swimming is there's individual performance and then there's the relays, much like track and field, where there's certain things that you can do as an individual performer, but then there's the relays. And I always loved the relays. And I always performed better on the relays than I did by myself on my individual event. And so, I think it was because I always thought I would be letting somebody else down on a relay of 4 people. If I didn't do my absolute best, then I wasn't contributing to the greater good of the relay itself. So, always being clear on my role and how I was contributing and what was expected of me, but I always did it better when I was doing it with 3 other people.
That's extremely powerful and shows our our commitment to others a lot of the time.
Mm.
So I'd be curious just to learn if you have of where did you learn how to swim? Were those in
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
lakes here in Canada? Or how did that started? How did that passion started?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think the passion was always in me. But growing up, our neighbors had a pool. And my mother, I'm the oldest of I have 2 siblings, and my mother was absolutely paranoid that in a good way, that I was going to climb my neighbor's fence and find myself in the pool. And so before I could walk, I was what they would classify as a water baby. And and there's kind of probably a circus act at one point where you sort of throw the baby in the water and they learn how to get to their back and get to the side of the pool. So I've always felt like I've been in water, and water has always been a very comfortable place for me. But I didn't know that I was good at it until after I broke my leg skiing as an 8-year-old. And the therapy was swimming, because once I got my cast off, I um, I had to put strength back in my legs. So my dad would take me to the pool just about every day. We'd swim a couple laps, and then we'd come home. And I swam in the summers at a summer club. So definitely pools and oceans are still my favorite. I am definitely just a water centric individual. So I'll go in a lake, but I don't like not being able to see the bottom.
Yes.
So I think my love of the water is around seeing everything around me. And I think the love of something that you love to do, and then you're able to excel at it, makes you committed to it. And so after my swimming took off with the broken leg incident, I was fortunate enough that there was some pretty good swim programs around where I lived, and they threw me in at age 8, and I was, I guess, what they call somewhat of a natural.
That is awesome. Definitely feel the thing about being able to see the bottom of the lake. I'm originally from Texas, and now I live in Minnesota. So the lakes in Texas are much different than Minnesota. You can't always see the bottom, but at least I can see my feet when I'm in the lake up here. That makes me feel better. Um, so let's bring it kind of back to some technology sort of things, because I guess I'm being a little selfish, but I am very interested in how you've done this for 30 years. Talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've seen over that time, and also how people
Mhm.
can stay up to date in just staying up to date. That's one of the things that I'm really working on myself, in the space that I'm in right now. It can be intimidating to even stay up. So talk a little bit about things that you've seen change and how you encourage people to stay up to date.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has changed. I uh, I was one of those COBOL programmers
Oh, wow.
back when I started. Did a little bit, didn't do a lot, but there was a lot of green screens around when I started. So um, I think the pace of change is certainly super fast right now, and it is a little overwhelming because what you learn today could be something very different even a week from now. And that part is very, very challenging for me. I mean, I, I, you don't always know where to go to get the latest and what's real and what's not real. I think the being curious, as I said, talking to um, peers, understanding how they stay on top of um, learnings. Um, again, I'm very fortunate to be at a company like Accenture that invests incredibly on training, and through the research and development dollars that go into our organization. There is standard curriculum that we all have to follow around our technology quotient, and how do we stay and learn about large language models, and back in the day, how to a digital business, what does it actually mean? And so, I think we need to be curious, but I'm very fortunate that we have partners like AWS that also release training for your partners to help us understand how to be smart about your technologies. So, I'm probably not being particularly clear on how I do it, but I think even recognizing that you can't stand still in what you know, and that you have to look outside to, peers, friends, colleagues. How are they staying on top of their technology, ecosystem partners? How do we stay close to how you're investing, what's changing, what training is available from our partners? Um, but you really have to be curious and be willing to do new things. Um, and I've moved around a lot. I like I said earlier, I get bored very easily, so I tend to know a little about a lot of things. And I think I've got colleagues that are very, very deep in certain areas, and I rely on them for their technical depth and skill, and try to translate that into what that means for our business strategy and our clients. So I think there's an element of individual curiosity, what assets and tools and is available to you, and then look again. This comes to know your own strengths versus others. Um, who are the deep technologists that you can have the conversation with on what does it mean? Like, what does agentic mean? And how is that going to affect our technical architectures, our business rules, our how data flows, how decisions get made in a cloud? Like, these are all things that none of us know a complete answer to right now. But if you're not asking the question and then probing into the limitations that may exist today, I don't know how you learn.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's my space. I cover Q developer and all of this agentic things, and it is a constant learn and be curious. What can I learn today? What can I build today? Super fun, and it's helpful for me because I also get bored very easily, but not now. Have no time for that.
Very good.
So when you are mentoring people, especially women in technology, but just professionals in general, I have heard your message again and again that you are really passionate about kind of like lifting people up and
Yeah.
identifying people's strengths and those sorts of things. So how have you seen that landscape shift for women in technical leadership over the course of your career? Because I think we're making strides and we still have a bit more to do. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I agree. I think there are more visible female leaders in technology and in business, certainly in Canada. Um, and sometimes I think it is about encouraging women to take on more responsibility or take on a new role that they might not feel they're quite a fit for. Um, and so, encouraging them to go for it, and that, you're there from, and by doing that, I think you're becoming an advocate to other women, which I think is important. Not just mentoring, but advocacy, and sponsorship. I mean, all those things are good, but advocacy to me is around helping women get into those roles. And because women don't always see themselves in those roles, I'm sure everybody knows the stats where, men will apply for jobs even if they have 50% of the skills. Women need to have like 90% of the skills before they'll even put their hand up. But encouraging women that you think have the potential, and sometimes having to convince them, which has happened in my career where I've had advocacy for roles that I didn't think I was qualified for, but I knew there was somebody there that wasn't going to let me fall. And so having that combination of, and you have to have the trust in order to be able to do that. But the advocacy is there, the encouragement needs to be there. I think just as many women as men are capable in these roles. It's just that we don't always see ourselves in them. So having somebody else tell you that you will be great in this role, and here's all the reasons why I think you will, and having the ability to self-reflect. Okay, I didn't know people saw me that way. Okay, sure. But me personally, if I didn't have that advocacy, I probably would not be where I am today because I needed a little push along the way. And I think women generally need a little push.
Yep, agreed.
I wish we had 2 more hours to speak. This is such a great conversation. I could spend an hour for each of the questions that we are discussing. This feels great. And I know we're getting ready to wrap it up. But before we do it, and thank you again for your powerful message around building safe spaces for team, your experience on overcoming challenges through transformation from your as well as your athlete background, um, kindness. You touched on sponsorship, advocacy, being authentic, being humble, to be coachable, being a team player. So that's amazing. And I wanted to maybe ask you for a final message. What is the one advice you would give to someone watching us right now who's pursuing their technology goals or athlete goals, that are pursuing their objectives? Um, what are the things that you have advised your mentees on, that you have seen work well, things that people have advised you on? So share
Mhm.
your message.
I think um, having clarity, uh, and your ability to articulate that clarity. So whether that is what you want in your career or what you want in your next role, or where you want to improve or enhance your technology competency, I think you have to have clarity on voicing that. So if you don't have it, then looking to others to help you frame that for yourself. Because I don't know how anybody can really help you if you don't have the own clarity for yourself. And it's kind of the same as what I talked about at the beginning, where if our clients don't have a clear objective around business value, it's really hard to anchor on things to advance. So, I think clarity's probably universally true for all the things we discussed. And then and having the courage to take a leap of faith. And then as the leader, just being authentic and lead with empathy. I think those are probably the 4 things I'd like to wrap up with.
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much again, Jane. I really hope we get the chance to meet you again and
Yeah.
bring you closer and have
Yeah.
you in more episodes. But thank you for sharing your story. And thanks, Candice, for sharing this episode with me as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both, ladies. It's been an absolute joy. It's been fun to go down memory lane a little bit here too. I think I'm really excited about what our organizations continue to do together, but also just building up women confidence contributions is really, really, really gives me joy. So thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you.